Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
It is the BJ Show. Today's date is the 27th of May. Is that right? A Tuesday. And this is what happens when you have 3 days off. John, can you hear me? I don't hear anything. I mean, do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine, and I speak to you, and you can't hear me. But hey, we'll work around it, Brad.
You know what? Let's bring back Skype. You know what I'm telling you?
I think so. We had a few months head start, but I don't know why teams didn't work today. But you know what? Maybe we can figure it out over the break.
That is John Combest. Every single day for the past 23 years, he puts together this extensive list of all the important stuff that you should know about in the state of Missouri. Could be something going on in Jefferson City, could be across the state, could be down Lake of the Ozarks, could be in northern Missouri where nobody lives. But you know what? We give you all the scoop. Now, what we do is John puts together this list, johncombest.com, C-O-M-B-E-S-T, typically 20 to 30, sometimes 40, 50 different stories, sometimes even 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 or 100 when he's really busy. But what we do is we start the show off with this guy right here. What's your name, sir?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And we count him down. We start off with?
In third place,
a follow-up story from last fall that was a fun one. Missouri State University president Biff Williams was in a little bit of trouble, according to DEI types and people with no sense of humor, back from his previous job at Utah Tech. Now, you might recall, when Mr. Williams was at Utah Tech, a friend of his that worked in the administration had a vasectomy. And Mr. Williams thought it would be funny when his friend was recovering from the vasectomy to put a little bit of patio artwork up on his friend's patio, up on his deck, so to speak, in front of his house. So Mr. Williams arranged a little bit of an eggplant display to celebrate the fact that his friend had just gotten snipped. Now, Mr. Williams facetiously and sarcastically signed a note with the name of two female colleagues that said something to the effect of, "Hope everything went well, hope you're recovering in a speedy fashion," etc. Well, as you might expect in the world of higher ed, having a sense of humor is not appreciated. So by the time that Mr. Williams got to Missouri State, news came out that Mr. Williams was being charged with sexual harassment. You know, you can't have fun with coworkers, especially when you're in higher ed. Well, Brad, over the weekend, we learned that a Utah Tech independent third-party investigation has cleared Mr. Williams of any, quote, substantial findings, unquote, of harassment or sexual harassment or any sort of a hostile workplace because of the prank he pulled on his friend. You might also recall that back in the fall and early winter, members of the Missouri State faculty, you know, you could picture folks who've been in higher ed their entire life, they held a vote and determined they had, quote, no confidence in Mr. Williams' ability to lead. I mean, who could lead a university if they make a vasectomy joke, you know? But the Missouri State Board of Governors, they didn't have a problem with what Mr. Williams did. They said they're happy they hired him. They're keeping him on board. They have no punishment. And it would seem as though this recent statement from Utah Tech would confirm that, hey, Mr. Williams just has a sense of humor. Let's let him do his thing.
John, there is a one-word response to this whole thing, and it's one word, and it's got 32 letters in it. You know what that one word is?
Is it supercalifragilistic something?
No, it's duh. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, now tell us what you think about this, Brad.
This is we talked about this before, John. This is so ridiculous. I mean, you know, once again, it's to me, it's a harmless little joke. You know, I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Filed by 3 colleagues. They said that this type of a action constituted a toxic work environment.
Toxic work environment. Okay. I don't get it. I never will. I don't understand that kind of stuff. Now I'm getting feedback, John. Are you?
I am putting my headset in, Brad. We'll cut this out for YouTube. Can you maybe give me 3 seconds?
I'll give you 3 seconds. And only in college. Okay, I think you now put your headset in, right?
Yes.
Okay. Much better. Much better. It sounded like you had rats that were running around on your microphone there. It's like, like all sorts of crazy stuff. I don't know. I mean, I'm glad the guy got cleared. The problem I have with the guy is his name, Biff. That's not his real name, is it?
Correct. His parents did not name him Biff, Brad.
I was going to say maybe they were big fans of Back to the Future. Naming him
They
Biff.
probably were. Nobody home. And you know what? His dad's name was actually Marty McFly. You know who's not a McFly who is generally the coolest guy in the room, the subject of story number 2 today.
Up a notch to number 2.
That's right. Governor Mike Kehoe will hold a press conference today at 10 a.m. to detail exactly when he wants the Missouri legislature to come back and exactly what he wants them to talk about. It's widely anticipated that the governor will bring back the legislature next week to discuss keeping the Kansas City Royals and the Kansas City Chiefs. But Brad, conventional wisdom is also that the governor, as of today, doesn't have the votes he needs in both the Missouri House and the Missouri Senate to pass a stadium bill. So what kind of proverbial horse trading will have to take place? I have several pieces up today that speculate on just that. I have a piece from KMBC over in Kansas City. We have veteran journalist Mike Mahoney and the leader of the Missouri Independent, a guy named Jason Hancock. They're speculating on what that special session might look like. We have Dirk Deaton, who's the chairman of the House Budget Committee. He was on KZRG radio over the weekend talking about what he anticipates will be in Governor Kehoe's package. I would anticipate, Brad, that this is going to have a really hard time passing the Senate, and it's going to end up being really costly, and there's going to be a whole lot of other sweeteners put in this bill.
So does he, when he convenes this special session, does he force him to stay in session until he gets what he wants?
That's a good question. No, I wouldn't say he forces them to stay for a predetermined period of time. But I believe in this case, from what I've read, it'll be 2 weeks. So it'll probably start next Monday, which is the 2nd, and it'll probably go till the following Friday. So they'll have 2 work weeks to get stuff done. That's what I would anticipate. And you could also go ahead, Brad.
I was going to say, and the only thing they're doing is the stadium deal for the Kansas City Chiefs and the Royals. That's it.
No, like I said, Governor Kehoe is expected to add some other things today at 10 a.m. at the press conference. So we would anticipate he would add some capital projects. We talked extensively on this show about the fact that the House did not move their own budget bill, House Bill 19, which included a lot of spending projects. You could consider them pet projects across the state. Some people would consider them vital projects for public safety and other things across the state. And Brad, you would also anticipate that the governor might use the tornado storm damage as a reason to keep the legislators around, and maybe as a little bit of a sweetener for the stadium deal as well.
John, you know what the whole problem with this whole situation is?
What's that?
Bill Eigel is not our governor. If Bill Eigel were our governor, there wouldn't be a problem, because Bill will just say, look, if you guys don't put this stadium bill on the agenda and pass it, I'm going to come and I'm going to replace all your skylights with cellophane, so the first time it rains, the water's just going to go right in your house. And they go, we don't want that, Mr. Eigel, we don't want that. And they would essentially say, okay, we'll do whatever you say.
But you think of how sad you would be, Brad, because think of how boring the St. Charles County executive race would be in 2026. If Bill Eigel wasn't involved, it would just be your friend Mike Elam and Jason Law going head-to-head. That's no fun. It's no fun when you have a direct head-to-head. You got to have at least a 3-way dance.
I still say, this is, I told you that was it last week I mentioned this, that finally another person, Mark Cox on 97.1 said, why don't they just bring the teams here to St. Louis? I'm thinking to myself, okay, I've said that. How many months have I talked about this, John?
But a long time, Brad. Yeah, go ahead.
Nobody will ever say anything. And you know what's frustrating to me?
What's that?
Both the Kansas City Chiefs Arrowhead Stadium and the K, as they call it, where the Royals play, two very nice facilities to this day. And I always talk about this. When you go downtown and you want to park near, if you go downtown to the Dome or if you go downtown to the Busch Stadium, what don't you have close by, John? And I'll give you a clue. It starts with P. What don't both of them have?
Pedophiles.
No, parking.
You're right. But guess what is the setup like for folks who don't know, Brad? What's the setup like at Kaufman and at Arrowhead?
There are acres and acres and acres and acres and acres of parking. Matter of fact, if you're a football fan, I've never been to one of the pregame shows for the Kansas City Chiefs, but if you're a football fan, the Kansas City Chiefs parking lot is tailgating nirvana. I'm telling you, and not only that, the crazy thing about this is that if I'm not mistaken, I do believe that Arrowhead Stadium is still in the Guinness World Book of Records as the loudest stadium on the planet. How are they going to change that? You don't know what I mean. They'll probably build a new dome stadium and they'll have acoustical tiles in it on the ceiling. And it'll be super quiet. It's like, okay, you guys just blew it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. It kind of surprises me that you would like that setup because I feel like if the Cardinals or a football team had that setup here, you would complain about the fact that they had a monopoly on parking, that they could charge whatever they want. You don't really have a choice of where to park. You got to go with the big parking thing. Could you believe they charge $35? There's only one way in and one way out. It's a mess. They should just have a random bunch of streets that you got to park on and have your car broken into. I'm surprised you like the setup, Brad.
John, how many times, you're the Mr. News guy, how many times have you heard a story about fans' cars being broken into on the parking lot of the Kansas City Royal Stadium or the Kansas City Chiefs Stadium? How many times?
Haven't heard it at all. Heard it at all.
I rest my case, John. I rest my case.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to pay that parking fee over there to know that your car is safe for sure. And you have a shorter walk. I like it.
Once again, yeah. And you're on their property. They patrol it. The police are there. Whereas in downtown St. Louis, you're not on their property. The police don't patrol it. You know what I'm saying? Okay, time for number one.
The number one.
A story that posted Friday from the Daily Wire, the super uber conservative publication, the Daily Wire. And the headline, the looming GOP food fight over pesticides. Last week, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., RFK Jr., released his MAHA report about what his administration was going to do, some of the things that they were going to look more closely at. And one of the things that was mentioned several times in the report were pesticides. What should the American food system do about pesticides? Farmers need them to grow their crops. A lot of people are scared of having traces of them in their food, or they think that the chemicals, the use of the chemicals themselves cause cancer. Thankfully, the Daily Wire looked at this chasm, this fissure, so to speak, within the Republican Party, and interviewed Missouri's own state senator, Nick Schroer. Nick Schroer is a member of the Freedom Caucus. Nick Schroer is also one of the state senators that was targeted by a group that said, hey, does Nick Schroer and his pals, do they support China or do they support American-made pesticides? So Nick lays it out, I think, pretty evenly here. Nick was against and remains against Bayer's bill that would give the company a little bit of freedom from liability. The bill says that as long as the EPA label says that stuff is safe, you can't come back and sue Bayer and say, well, Bayer didn't give me any warning. Well, Bayer used the EPA language on their label. That's the gist of that bill. Nick Schroer lays out the fact that there's got to be a balance there between growers, farmers being able to use crop protection products and the ability of people who feel they've been harmed by a product to have their day in court. So this piece, Brad, from the Daily Wire, breaks down kind of the folks that are really close to RFK Jr. and they give RFK credit for what they call towing that line. You know, there's so many people that are in the pro-Trump community that have strong ties to agriculture, that believe in glyphosate and atrazine and all these other chemicals that are controversial, that know that farmers got to have the stuff to produce crops. And then there's a lot of people in the MAGA movement that say, hey, we're not just going to do songs and dances for corporations anymore. The day of us being indebted to these giant mega corporations is dead. So shout out to Nick Schroer for being mentioned in this national piece. They also cite, of course, some complete Looney Tunes activists here. There's a woman named Zen Honeycutt who maybe it's unfair for me to call her a Looney Tune, but she's one of these people that believes that, you know, glyphosate causes all these diseases. She tells this fantasy tale about what glyphosate does to the roots of plants. It's a theory that I worked on many years ago that's been completely debunked. Anyway, there is a balance here, Brad, in the right wing among people who are very pro-ag and people who think that everybody should have their day in court if they feel they've been harmed. So Nick Schroer, that piece is up today. It posted last Friday, but I have it on my website today.
See, you know, there's a real easy way to get this all taken care of.
Does it have to do with you using the moniker Ricky Schroeder?
John, aren't you proud of me? I didn't say that once.
Yeah, well, I tried to keep going so you couldn't interrupt and say it. Go ahead, Brad. I try to filibuster you. You know, Democrats can't do it in the state Senate anymore, but I can.
Here's what they should do. These protesters that protest against Monsanto, glyphosate, whatever you call it, they should say, okay, we're going to take a field near your house. We're going to find a volunteer farmer, and we're going to not use any chemicals, and you have to go pull the weeds. So that's, and then just send them out in the field. Say, okay.
They would become herbicide advocates right away, right. Brad, in a matter of hours.
Right. They go, why I got to go pull the weeds? Yeah, you got to go pull the weeds. You got to walk through the rows of the crops and pull the weeds out of the ground. And guess what? By the time you finish on the upper 40, you'll be on the lower 40, but the upper 40 will have new weeds. So it'll just be your job from now on during growing season to just stay in the field and pull those weeds out, right? Because you've told the story.
They would be so happy about it. Yeah.
Right. You told the story about how in third world countries, the girls, the women can now go to school because in the old days they had to stay in the field and pull the weeds all the time, right?
You're exactly right. Yeah, chemicals, and it's not just Roundup, but it's other insecticides as well. Which is under the larger class of pesticides. These type of tools enable people to get off the farm, go get education, and then come back to the farm if they need it.
You know, I think there was a song about that. How are you going to keep them?
What was it called?
How are you going to keep them down in the farm after they find glyphosate?
Or glyphosate. And I thought you were going to say, glyphosate. I thought you were going to say, how lazy bones sleeping in the sun. How are you going to get your day's work done?
No.
Well, if you don't have glyphosate, how are you going to do it?
I wouldn't do that. And John, in B Block, I'll give you update on my weed killing potions that I've been developing. How about that?
Oh, I love that, Brad. That's fantastic.